The trailer reeked of rotting food and human waste. Trash covered every surface. But it was what Deputy Orozco found beneath the barely conscious parents that made his blood run cold. A pale, lifeless little girl, nicknamed Zaki, only 5 years old. As investigators pieced together the events leading to this tragedy, they uncovered a disturbing pattern of neglect and a deadly mistake that turned the family's attempt to stay warm in their unheated trailer into a fatal miscalculation with irreversible consequences. Stay with me, because this is a case you won't forget. The heartbreaking story of Zaki's final moments, a family's desperate attempt to survive, and the deadly choices that led to her untimely death. This is the case of Xaqueline Bynum, and it will leave you questioning everything you thought you knew about neglect, survival, and the cost of a life lost too soon. Viewer discretion is advised as we dive into a story filled with grief, neglect, and the devastating effects of poverty and poor decisions. Zaki's life began in a home where survival was the top priority. Her parents, Matthew Curtis Bynum, 39, and Musically Adamo, 34, struggled with poverty, addiction, and a lack of proper support. The family lived in a rundown trailer in Silver City, far from the ideal home a child deserves. In these difficult circumstances, basic necessities like heat, clean water, and a safe environment were luxuries they couldn't afford. The family was forced to rely on whatever they could scrape together to stay warm, resorting to dangerous and makeshift methods to combat the cold. It was a life of hardship, one where the line between survival and danger was often blurred. And on that cold March night, the decisions made out of desperation would lead to a tragic consequence. To stay warm in their unheated trailer, Matthew and Music made a deadly decision. They started burning coals inside the trailer, trying to provide warmth during the cold winter nights. What they didn't know, or perhaps didn't fully understand, was that carbon monoxide was accumulating in the air. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless, and toxic gas that can lead to unconsciousness and death if inhaled in large quantities. Inside the trailer, with no ventilation, the gas was building up, and Zaki, the smallest and most vulnerable, was exposed to it. Her tiny body couldn't fight the effects of the gas, and she succumbed to the poisoning, while her parents were too overwhelmed and disoriented to notice the danger. When first responders entered the trailer, they were greeted by an overwhelming scene of filth and decay. The trailer was covered with rotting food, garbage, and human waste. A neighbor living on the same property in a van called 911, reporting an unresponsive child. Emergency services quickly arrived at the trailer, but what they found was not just a child's body, but an environment of neglect and neglectful parenting that would forever change the family's future. Upon entering the home, deputies found Xaqueline's lifeless body beneath her sleeping parents, who were in a lethargic state. A 7-year-old boy was found alive but in critical condition when first responders arrived at the trailer. He was suffering from severe dehydration and pneumonia, likely caused by the harsh, unsanitary living conditions. The boy had been exposed to carbon monoxide poisoning, similar to his sister, but fortunately survived. He was taken to a medical facility for treatment and later placed in protective custody. His health was severely impacted by the neglect he experienced. Zaki's parents, Matthew Bynum and Music Adam, were in a semi-conscious state. The officers immediately began urging them to get up and respond, but they were unable to do so. The reason for their inability to move or respond was due to carbon monoxide poisoning. The gas had overwhelmed their bodies, causing dizziness, confusion, and weakness. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless, and toxic gas that can cause unconsciousness or death when inhaled in high concentrations. This is why both parents were unable to wake up or respond to the officer's commands. They were suffering from the toxic effects of the gas, which had been accumulating in the trailer due to improper heating. The breakthrough came when Thaddeus Hawkins, the neighbor who called 911, spoke to investigators. He revealed something neither parent had mentioned. The family burned coal inside the trailer for warmth. Detectives immediately recognized what this meant. The metal tub of ashes wasn't just trash, it was a makeshift heater. With this detail, the medical examiner connected the dots, the symptoms, the confusion, Zaki's death. They all pointed to carbon monoxide poisoning. Carbon monoxide doesn't make you cough. It doesn't burn your eyes. You can't see it or smell it. But inside that trailer, it was killing them all slowly. When coal burns without enough airflow, it creates this invisible poison. The molecule attaches to your blood cells 200 times more easily than oxygen does. It's like putting a lock on your body's ability to breathe at the cellular level. Zaki's autopsy showed 70% carboxyhemoglobin saturation in her blood. To put that in perspective, levels above 50% are usually fatal for adults. For a small child weighing just 38 pounds, anything over 30% would have been dangerous. The medical examiner compared it to being underwater too long, except instead of water filling your lungs, your own blood turns against you molecule by molecule. CDC reports show about 430 Americans die each year from accidental carbon monoxide poisoning. Low-income families face higher risks because they're more likely to use alternative heating methods during winter. These statistics don't capture the real horror, though. Entire families killed in their sleep, unaware they're being poisoned until it's too late. That metal tub of coal ashes wasn't just a poor heating choice. It became a weapon inside that enclosed space. The parents showed classic CO poisoning symptoms when paramedics arrived: confusion, muscle weakness, inability to think clearly. But here's what investigators couldn't ignore. They'd been burning coal indoors for days, according to Hawkins. That means multiple exposures, multiple warnings their bodies gave them through headaches and nausea. Yet they kept doing it while their children slept feet away from the makeshift heater. Ventilation could have saved them. A $20 carbon monoxide detector could have screamed warnings before levels turned deadly. Even cracking a window would have helped, but the trailer stayed sealed tight, trapping the gas inside like a slowly filling poison jar. When CO reaches 400 parts per million, about what a faulty furnace might produce, you have just 3 hours before unconsciousness sets in. This wasn't a quick death, like carbon monoxide is sometimes portrayed in movies. It was gradual. First comes the headache, then dizziness makes standing difficult. Eventually, your brain gets so oxygen-starved, you can't even form the thought to crawl to safety. The parents weren't passed out from drugs when first responders arrived. They were being chemically paralyzed by their own attempt to stay warm. Yet one question haunted investigators. Zaki's brother survived. Same trailer, same poison. Why did one child die while the other lived? The answer lies in simple biology. Younger bodies process CO differently, and just a few inches of elevation where she slept might have put Zaki directly in the gas's path. Her smaller lungs worked harder to filter the poisoned air, dooming her faster than the others. Every hour that heater ran, death crept closer until finally it claimed the most vulnerable first. That tub of ashes wasn't just evidence, it was the murder weapon. As the investigation unfolded, New Mexico State Police and local law enforcement quickly realized this was more than a tragic accident. The family's living conditions were uncovered, revealing a history of neglect. Matthew Bynum and Music Adam, despite their love for their children, had made a series of dangerous decisions that ultimately led to Zaki's death. The authorities found that the family's trailer was in poor condition, lacking essential utilities like running water and reliable heating. To stay warm during the cold nights, they had resorted to burning coals inside without proper ventilation, which caused carbon monoxide to build up in the confined space. This reckless behavior, born out of desperation and poverty, had deadly consequences. Zaki's death was preventable. She had been exposed to a toxic environment that no child should ever have to endure. The investigation revealed a deep failure to protect her, and the charges soon followed. On May 22, 2024, Matthew Curtis Bynum, 39, and musically Adam, 34, were arrested by the Grant County Sheriff's Office in connection with the tragic death of their 5-year-old daughter, Xaqueline Bynum, who died on March 10, 2024, from carbon monoxide poisoning. The family had used coal to heat their home, which caused a deadly buildup of toxic gas in the trailer. As a result, Zaki lost her life due to the poisoning. The parents were charged with child abuse resulting in death, a first-degree felony, and child abuse resulting in great bodily harm, a second-degree felony. Additionally, Music Adam faced a third-degree felony charge for child abuse for methamphetamine exposure, as her 7-year-old son tested positive for methamphetamine while being treated for dehydration and pneumonia. Both parents were taken into custody at the Grant County Detention Center and awaited arraignment. After weeks of deliberation, the judge rendered a verdict on July 22, 2024. Matthew Bynum and Music Adam were convicted of child abuse resulting in death and child abuse resulting in great bodily harm. The judge sentenced Matthew Bynum to 25 years in prison and Music Adam to 20 years. The sentences reflected the gravity of the neglect and the severe consequences it had on Zaki's life. Though no prison sentence could ever bring Zaki back, the legal system had taken steps toward justice for a child who had been tragically neglected. The sentencing was a reminder that neglect is just as harmful as abuse, and that those responsible for a child's well-being must be held accountable for their actions. Zaki's death was not just a tragedy for her family, but for the entire community. The case sparked conversations about the importance of child welfare and the responsibility of communities to intervene when children are at risk. Zaki's surviving 7-year-old brother was placed in protective custody after the death, and he was placed with other relatives. Zaki's case serves as a reminder of the dangers of neglect and the consequences of not intervening sooner when children's lives are at risk. Zaki Bynum's story is a painful reminder of how a neglectful environment and reckless behavior can lead to unimaginable consequences. Her tragic death could have been prevented, and while justice was served in the form of the parents' convictions, The loss of her life is something that cannot be undone. Let's take a moment to remember Zaki and ensure that her story helps to raise awareness about the dangers of neglect and the importance of protecting those who cannot protect themselves. Zaki, though your time with us was far too short, your story will never be forgotten. You were loved, and your life matters. Rest in peace, little one. You are in a better place now, free from pain and sorrow. If you found this story impactful, please like, comment, and share this video to continue raising awareness. Thank you for watching, and remember, Secrets in the Shadows will continue bringing you stories that need to be heard. Please consider subscribing. I'll see you in my next video.